So hello everybody, my name's David Lane and I'm the chairman of Consequential Robotics, and it's my great pleasure today to welcome my colleague and friend indeed, Professor Lynne Baillie from the Department of Computer Science, the Edinburgh Centre for Robotics, National Robotarium at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. So hello Lynne.
Hello David.
Good, how are you today? Where are you today?
I'm actually in my house.
Okay, it's holiday time just now, so we are back in the labs and lecture theatres.
We're doing two experiments at the moment. Just finished one looking at games for cognitive rehabilitation through a Pepper robot, and also we are doing a robotics squash coach at the Orium.
Oh wow, Orium's the athletics facility and sports facility we've got at Heriot-Watt University.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's a great pleasure to have you with us today, Lynne, and thank you for spending the time. Lynne, for those who don't know, she's one of the top UK researchers in the use of advanced robotics in assisted living and healthcare settings, and has been working a lot with the MiRo robot, not just around research, but also around student projects. And so what we wanted to talk about a little bit today is the way that MiRo can be used as a research tool in healthcare, but also how students in undergraduate projects can use MiRo in order to have a good experience and learn about programming and learn about doing projects and so on in a creative way. So we know that MiRo is a cost-effective research tool, and with the release of MiRo Cloud, it's also a blended learning teaching tool for programming. But here, as I said, we're talking about MiRo in the project environment as your friendly social distancing reminder. And Lynne, you had a project student, Neve Curnyn, who was working with it. It's a final year undergraduate project in the Department of Computer Science over about 6 months. Maybe you could say a little bit about how the idea for the project came about and what is it you were trying to do?
Yeah, so basically, we were in lockdown as part of the pandemic, and one of the things was we had actually done a project the year before with the MiRo robot to do with falls. So we'd implemented an algorithm as part of that to detect movement within the home environment. So one of the things that we thought with this was, could we redevelop the work that we'd done the year before and actually use it for an honours project to see if we could assist people in social distancing within homes, because one of the things was that people weren't allowed other folk in their homes because social distancing rules weren't adhered to, or it's more difficult to comply with social distancing rules within people's homes. We posited that this was because it's difficult, homes are all different shapes and sizes, and it was very difficult for people to know when they were social distanced compared to in shops where they had stickers on the floor, which measured out the 2 meters or the 1.5 meters for you. So this was something that we felt the MiRo could actually potentially do, given our previous experience of the project the year before.
Wow, that sounds great and very, very topical. So in order to do that, you have to put the team together. Obviously, you've got the project student, but you had different places that you went to go and try this. How did you go about assembling a team for the project?
Yeah, so one of the things that we looked at was, what are the places where it's been found that this is most difficult? So one of the places obviously was student halls. So one of the things that we did was I talked to actually project students that I'd had in a group project the year before to see if any of them were staying in the student halls and whether they would be willing to take part in the study, in which they kindly agreed to one flat of 5, which due to social distancing ended up being a flat of 3 because of things that happened during the pandemic. We also looked to recruit a family to see what the differences were, whether the compliance was the same within a family environment compared to halls of residence, of course, because that's quite different. So this was something that we were really interested in, was did the MiRo work better in certain environments compared to others?
Right. So so you had some in the halls of residence, and then you had some with a family as well, and you knew the family anyway, I guess. Were they friends, or they're friends of friends? Or how did they come about?
Quite common in research experiments. You start by recruiting friends of friends, and then you hope you go further out to further removed. So we wanted to start with something that the people were familiar to a certain extent with, you know, what happens in a research project, even just a little bit, so that we weren't having any big surprises or anything that would cause any issues for the honours project student. Because as you know, honours student projects are only for a certain period of time, so you don't want any unexpected things to happen if you can avoid them, because obviously they only have one chance to do an honours project. So you have to be very careful that everything is managed and structured so that they can achieve their goals.
Great. Sounds like great fun for the student, actually. It's not just in the lab, but it's actually out doing something with people as well, which is entirely appropriate for a social robotics project. Okay. So just to be clear then, what did you set as the initial, or did you agree with Neve, was the initial objectives to the work?
Well, one of the things that we knew that the MiRo robot was capable of was multimodal notification. So that was one thing that we wanted to focus on, was the different modalities that the MiRo is capable of. So that was really one of the things that we focused on early on with Neve. So one of the things was, is it going to be individual notifications? So a lot of literature review there, what, you know, what types of notifications have worked for, what ways of other researchers try to program robots to give notifications, what's worked, what hasn't in different settings. So that was an interesting piece of research, especially when it came to the children. So Neve was looking at things like the IBO, the Cosmo, all these different, you know, more children orientated or focused robots, as well as, you know, the ones that are the more, you know, industrial type level robots. So it was a really interesting journey for Neve to look at these different robots and why some would be better in a home setting or a social setting than others.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. So we're going to look at some videos and pictures in a minute. Should we do that and have a look at what were the main findings from the project and kind of how it felt and looked for Neve? So, Neve, rather. So what I'm going to do here is try and share my screen, which is a very scary prospect. And we're going to do the family first, aren't we? So let's get the, I've got the picture up here, I think. Right. So let's do a bit of screen sharing. Let's see how that goes. Share the screen. Good. And so here we go. So now we're looking at, describe what we're looking at, Lynn.
So we're looking at the MiRo, which is in the kitchen, going into hall type environment. This is where they mainly had it, but the MiRo was also moved to a couple of different locations. And what was interesting for us about this was the fact that this was the location where you would expect to find a dog, for example, or a family pet. So it's quite interesting that they put MiRo in the same kind of environment as you would find, you know, a family pet. So that was quite interesting for us. Yeah.
And then I think we're going to have a look at, let's see if we can find the right one. And here we go, this is the one. A nice photograph of the family. Come on, here we go. So these were the guinea pigs. So family of 5. This is very kind. But really it was about working with the kids as much as anything in the family to see how they responded. Would that be right?
Yeah, actually, when we recruited them, they were a family of 4, so it was nice to family of 5 during the project. So yeah, I mean, it was really important for us to include children, especially in this, you know, because, you know, to see how well the notifications, whether there was a difference. In fact, the notifications that worked better for children than for adults. So that was useful for us. To find out whether the MiRo, also the acceptance, you know, was the acceptance of the MiRo, you know, better with children and families than it was with student halls of residence. They're quite different in their attitudes and makeup. So that was very, you know, useful for us research-wise to find out.
Good. Okay, let's say cheerio to them now. Let's have a look at a quick video. We've got a few videos to look at here of different things and how they went. So this is going to be the first one of social distancing. So maybe just quickly run us through what's going to happen, and then we'll make it run, and just the context of the experiment.
Okay, so basically the MiRo is watching the family through high definition cameras to see, and looking at the frame rates to see if there are, and comparing it to previous, to see if there is a block and they are close together, which would indicate. So then what the MiRo will do is it'll trigger one of the notifications. It's randomly done. So it could be any of the notifications, it could be the touch, it could be the voice, it could be the siren, it could light up. So we'll see which notification it is that's given to them, because obviously it's now recognized that this is people standing close together, and it's about to warn them in some way that they should socially distance.
Okay, so we're going to see, and Karen, we'll see in a minute which is the form of notification that MiRo uses and how they respond to that. Okay, so here we go. Turn the volume up, make sure we can hear it. Right, here we go. Oh, cute. That's pretty good. So that was an example of a verbal notification where MiRo was saying to them, you know, you're too close together, please stand further apart, and they did it. Okay. So what happens when they've done it? Does MiRo go quiet, or did it need some kind of confirmation?
No, MiRo goes quiet for that particular notification. Of course, if they don't, what it's programmed to do is remind them again after a certain time lag. So after X amount of seconds, if they've not actually social distanced, it will repeat, but it'll try a different notification in order to see whether they will comply with the other one. Yeah.
And then I think we've got an example here of one of the other kinds of notification that MiRo could make. So it could do it verbally, or it could do it using some of the lights on its back. So
And then there was a siren as well. So we picked that up, a siren. And then also there could be a request for the person to go and touch the MiRo to confirm that they're actually going to socially distance and comply.
Yeah, okay. So I think we've got an example of that here in the videos where it's going to be this one. Yeah. So let's get, so we don't confuse everything. Let's get rid of that one. Sorry, folks, for clumsy operation of. Here we go. So this is an example where MiRo's given the notification, and the kids are going in to confirm they've done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My back's on it to confirm you're socially distanced.
Cool. So MiRo's got touch sensors in its back, and that means by stroking MiRo, you can use it to communicate with the robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's good. Good. So that was quite a successful experiment. I think we've got one more video we can have a look at of the kids doing it on their own without mum. And did you think there was a difference how they responded to the robot with and without mum?
We didn't actually find that. We actually found very high compliance within the household. So we didn't actually find that that was the case. But that would be certainly something to investigate in the future if we had more households.
Okay, so here's the girls on their own.
Please remember to stay socially distanced.
And they were ready for it. That's fun. So I think it's fair to say they quite liked having MiRo in the home. Would you say that? Was it an enjoyable experience for the family?
Yeah, they really enjoyed the MiRo actually. They really embraced it. They didn't want to give it back. So they were very entranced by the MiRo actually. They loved it. They actually thought it was fun that it was giving them these notifications, and they would. We had a very high level, over 70% compliance within the family home.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, in the family home, you don't have to socially separate because you're in a family unit. But it's the principle that matters if you had guests coming over, I suppose. If they had their friends to come and stay, that.
Yeah, I mean, that was what we were really trying to see, was whether it would work in a home where it was safe for people to actually be close, because then we didn't want to run the risk of anybody getting COVID. So, of course, the next step would be to see whether it would actually work, which it would. I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't work with strangers. And that was the idea, is because of social isolation, especially of older people, if you could have such a thing in the future, could it mean that people were, you know, able to not have to do the social isolation to the extent we had to do it this time.
Yeah, okay, great. So then, having done that, that was a great learning experience. Neve went off, and you as well, actually, to go and have a look in student halls of residence and accommodation. And somewhere here, I think we've got a setting. So just talk us through what was going on here and who the students are, what university are they at, you know, and kind of what's the setup here.
Yeah, so these are students at Heriot-Watt University and studying various subjects. And basically, it's halls of residence. The way it's set up is there's 5-student flat. They all have their own individual bedrooms with en suites, but they share a living room and kitchen. So this is the shared living room of the student flat.
And there are, is it 3 or 4 students?
There was originally 5, but because of the issues with COVID, 2 returned home, and so 3 were living in a 5-person flat.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a bit better than normal, I suppose, during social distancing. Okay, so we've got, I mean, you ran a similar set of experiments with the students. Yep. One with voice, showing the voice response. Should we just run this and just get the idea across? Okay. So a high degree of compliance there. Yeah. How do you think it would be? I mean, this is a slightly artificial situation because they're doing it for the camera and they're not in the middle of doing something else like having a conversation. In the measurements that you made or the experiments you did you try different scenarios like that?
We didn't. I mean, obviously we weren't wanting to be intrusive, so we didn't. You know. Follow them in that sense in the home. What we did do though is, of course, we collected whether they complied with our notifications or not. So that is something that we did do. So we basically had, you know, they were over the period of time, they were given literally thousands of notifications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were given the verbal notification, in total, over both households, 801 times, the siren 856, the touch 929, and the lighting up 818. So, I mean, they were given a lot of notifications over the time period. And the compliance rate with the students was 67% for the verbal, 76% for the household. So basically, the least one that they complied with the students, and at least overall, was the lighting up, which was 27%, but it's still almost 30% compliance. Yeah.
So that's a step in the right direction, even with the light. But if you're not looking at it, you won't see it. So
that was the problem exactly with the light. And also, one of the things to do with going into these live environments compared to a lab is that there's a lot more stuff in there's real stuff in people's houses. You know, there's couches, there's tables, there's TVs, there's stuff real life. And so basically, you know, they just didn't see it, you know, because they're going about their daily business and they didn't see it. So I think this is one of the real interesting things for us as roboticists is we need to get out of the lab a little bit more.
Absolutely. Living labs is, especially with social robotics, but just robotics in general, is a key enabler for seeing how robots work in the real world. So I couldn't agree more. I think we've just got our last one here showing the touch response, same distancing thing, and then touch to confirm.
Please touch my back forehead to confirm your social identity.
You can't see it because of the, there she goes.
Please touch my back forehead to confirm your
it works. Okay, I can't get rid of this thing in the middle, never mind. But we got the idea. So that's great. So that looks like a really successful set of experiments. So I'm going to stop sharing just now. We'll get through it back again. And so it's been great to see that. And clearly, from the experimental point of view, it's quite useful. You got some great data out of it that's been quite useful about how MiRo could be a social distancing tool, you know, for us. Well, think about it from Neve's point of view as a student, you know, and because it's a learning experience and a journey for her in many ways. What were the main challenges she had to address in planning and in the technical implementation?
I think there were really interesting issues for Neve, and I think it was about learning new skills and adapting or building on existing skills. So I think that was a really important learning part of the project, because it's good to give them something where they've got a bit of confidence. In Neve's case, that was Python. She already knew Python. So one of the things we could use was Python within this project. So she was like, I know that, but then we also got her to learn new things like ROS, and also she had to learn about MiRo code and how that was converted to Python and so on. So there were existing skills which she could build on, but there were new skills that she also could build on as well. And also parts of the project, which was another reason why we did the experiments the way we did, was that they weren't reliant on Neve having to be physically in the lab at university. So that was another benefit as well. And we have a lot of MiRo robots at Heriot-Watt University, so we could give her at least 2 MiRo robots to have in her own home so that she could work with. So there were kind of different things around that was useful to Neve, but it was a real learning curve because she'd never encountered robots before. So I think that's something definitely we want to bring into the computer science undergraduate setup and programming structures more, because I think we're very much so far had robots more at postgraduate level and research PhD level. So I think thinking of more projects which would involve these types of, you know, more manageable skills within, you know, an honours project is something that I think our students would find really useful.
Yeah, I get that completely. We always think that MiRo has a number of features that allow the students to be creative. You know, they can think of the solutions. How would they use the features of MiRo in order to do the thing they're trying to do? So were there particular features of MiRo that Neve picked up on, or that indeed anybody in the team picked up on, that made it suitable both for a student project and for this particular set of experiments?
Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the things was that we wanted something that wasn't too invasive in the home. So that was a big consideration of what type of robot was selected for this. We also wanted to give different types of notification because we felt that we didn't know which one was the most appropriate within within the 2 different environments. And this was a big part of the project. And not all robots are capable of providing multimodal notifications in the way that the MiRo can. So that was important. Also, one of the things I was going to say, to maybe dial back a little bit, was that we'd implemented an algorithm the year before on the MiRo which detected movement. So we knew that it would only need to be, you know, adjusted within the time span of Neve's project to enable it to be repurposed for this project. So that was another benefit, is that, you know, because we've got a kind of running relationship and work with the MiRo robot, we can quickly do new experiments or new things with it. And it's quite accessible, and the support from Consequential Robotics and the way that they've done the flexibility they've given within the architecture of MiRo has really enabled us to use it more flexibly for different levels of projects.
Well, that's great to hear. That's what it was designed to do. So it's encouraging to hear that's been achieved. Well, it's been a great pleasure sort of finding out then about all this fantastic work that you've been and the student experience. You said that you know, the family in particular wanted the MiRo back. Maybe the students did too. You didn't cover that, so that's good to know. So what's next? What are the kind of next things you think you might want to do in future student projects, or indeed in future research?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of possibility. I think what doing the honours project for the first time has really meant that I'm happy, know that what the honours students are capable of now, and the fact that we can use the MiRo for honours projects and also potentially master's projects. So I think going forward, we'll certainly look at different topics we can use, especially with the launch of the National Robotarium. An assistive living lab, which will be in that environment. I think we can do a lot more experiments, especially looking at the assistive living, how it could support people socially, and you know, in an assistive way to stay within the home environment. So I think certainly experiments looking at people who are wanting to age in place and how we could support that through social robots, in particular with the MiRo, will be, I think, you know, something that we could use in studies for years to come. So I think definitely that's one of the next ones. Hopefully we don't have another pandemic. So I think definitely it's something that we will be looking at in the future for the National Roboterium. Also, you know, of course, and I don't want to not, but, you know, even giving a shout out for anybody who's watching this at some point, that we're also welcome for any ideas that people have that they would like us to investigate. We can certainly consider them. That's one of the points of the National Roboterium, is to get people in and demystify the whole robot world and get people interacting with robots.
Yeah, brilliant. Vaccine hesitancy is one thing that the kids have, I'm sure, you know, don't want to be jabbed. So I wonder if MiRo could help with that. That's a completely different project anyway.
Yeah, I think what was interesting for me was the compliance and how people said that they complied because it was a robot. They said they were more likely to comply with the MiRo asking them to socially distance than they would be a human being, which was an interesting eye-opener. There was that was they were more likely to comply. So I think that's something for us to think about as well, is do we get better compliance if we're getting a robot to ask someone to do something than if we're getting a human? So
yeah, I think that's a very interesting result from an undergraduate project. Wow, that's great. Well, listen, Lynne, thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting with you and hearing about this project and learning from you, and I've much appreciated it. Thank you very much from me and from MiRo.